it's your name that we've been hearing for a while. I guess it wasn't that much of a secret.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you got here. What was the process? When did they reach out to you? You said 3 months of study. Tell us more.
I became a candidate shortly after the state Supreme Court ruled in favor of the commissioner. So he called me after that, asked if I would apply and consider being an HISD superintendent. So I said yes, and then started thinking more about Houston at that time.
Why did he reach out to you, do you think?
I think a couple things. I mean, one, I was a superintendent of Dallas when he was a board member, so he could see what, up close and personal what I did, and he was, involved in many of those things. Not to talk too much about Mike Miles, but he was a board member in Dallas who really got into the nitty-gritty on the details of the key actions we were doing. He wanted to know the how. He wasn't getting in the way, he just wanted to know, evaluation system. We had several conversations, he and I, about that before we implemented it. So I think he was the one who knew most about the actual work and not the noise. So I think that's one. I think two, the noise. I mean, he knows that I understand noise. And by that I mean this. That for every change, for every initiative, there's going to be people who are worried about it, anxious about it, fearful about it. That's just normal human behavior. That's okay. And they're going to express that anxiety and fear in different ways. Sometimes it's just yelling and screaming. But one has to understand, a leader has to understand that there's a reason for that. And so forget the yelling and screaming. I try to hear what is it that they're actually trying to say. What's the kernel of truth? What is their truth in all that noise? And then act upon that, or at least understand it. And then I can let the rest just, fall off my back. I did that in Dallas, because in Dallas we did a lot of change, and I think that's the third reason. The third reason is that we did a number of really controversial but necessary reforms in Dallas that had great effect on student achievement and student outcomes. Dallas is a much stronger district, and again, partly because of what my team and I did.
And why did you want the job?
We need a new education system in this country. It's not just HISD. The achievement gap in America is still about 25 to 30 points for Hispanic students and about 30 to 35 points for black students in the country. We're worse than that in HISD, but in the country, we've not closed that gap. We closed the black-white achievement gap in the nation 2 points in 20 years, and then we lost those 2 points during COVID. 2 points in 20 years. So that's a testament to the failure of our education system when we can't educate all kids well, and where the proficiency rate continues to hover around the 25th percentile. And in Houston, for example, for fourth grade readers, in Houston on the NAEP 2022, 11% of our kids are reading at the proficient or above level. 11. So that's, again, this is not, I'm trying not to be too critical of the people, because the people respond to a system, and it's the system that is broken. So, look first there, and then we can criticize people, but anybody working in a failed system, can be forgiven a little bit. So I think we've spent the last 6 years in Third Future Schools coming up with a different education system. what are the principles of an education system that we would have that can prepare kids for the year 2035. And we perfected that over the last 6 years to where we can turn around, we're a turnaround model network. Out of the 11 schools we have now, 9 of them are turnarounds, meaning we were invited in to take over chronically existing school, chronically failing school. And we've been able to do that to great effect in just 1 year. Sam Houston Elementary School in Midland, Ector College Prep in Odessa. So whole-scale systemic reform is the only way we're going to change the American education system. Whole-scale reform. Not piecemeal, not incremental, which is what we like to do, which is why we've not been, we, education profession, we've not been successful. So this is an opportunity. Houston has an opportunity with the right board of managers, with the right team and leadership, and the strength of the community, and the right supports to really turn around an urban district, and to do it in a way that supports whole-scale systemic reform as we move forward. Can't do the whole district at one time. It's like building a plane while you're flying it. But what you can do is do a subset of schools, reform those completely or turning them around completely, and then expand that subset, those proof points, to the larger district. So the vision for HISD, for me, is prepare kids for the year 2035 by reforming whole scale 150 of the 273 schools. I'm allowing that. Some schools are doing well. The system is working for them. Even though almost every system here can be improved, there's no need for some schools to have whole-scale reform. But for our chronically failing schools, or schools that are D, F, and low C schools, we can turn those around. HISD will not close the achievement gap or prepare kids for the year 2035 doing what they've always done. It's not a program that's going to help. There's no way to do it. And I don't even need to be on the ground to say that. I know enough about the system, I know enough about the data and about urban districts to say that. So we need whole-scale reform. So whole-scale reform means the underlying principles have to change. Things like how we staff buildings. So instead of staffing the normal way, what we have to do is have a staffing model that honors the changes to the workforce, which is more work-life balance, more mobility, higher pay, but also ensures that every kid has 185 student-teacher contact days of high-quality instruction, which means that you have to have teacher apprentices, it means you have to have learning coaches, it means you have to have people ready to step in the classroom. It also means that you have to have lesson plans already prepared for the teacher, you have to have the copies made, you have to have the PowerPoint, the answer key, all ready to go. That's a fundamentally different way of staffing the
So
schools.
those things would be done centrally, preparing the lessons, rather than having the teachers do them?
They will be, yes, they will be, in the Houston case, we won't do it whole scale because you can't do it, I mean, with all 273 schools, we'll do a subset. In that subset of schools, the answer is yes. Teachers will have the option of not using those, but in my experience, they love it. We will also ensure that we have a really strong curriculum, the ones that's tied to science of reading, et cetera, so that kids get the best curricular that's tied to these lesson plans. That's one aspect. Another aspect is the evaluation and compensation system. So the compensation will be really tied to a hospital model, and how the teachers have to operate. What that means is, think about a surgeon. Surgeons don't prepare the room. Surgeons don't prep the materials, the equipment. They don't clean up afterwards. They are just hired to do what they're really good at and what costs a lot of money, the surgery. teachers need to be high-quality instructors, effective instructors. That's what they should get paid for, and they should get paid way more than they get paid right now. So for the 30 schools, for example, we're going to pay an average salary of $85,000 base plus a $10,000 signing bonus this first year to work at a high-priority school. That's a $95,000 average salary. And we're going to move the entire district that way over time. Can't do it the first year, but I can do 30 schools that way and move those schools to where the teachers are truly treated like professionals. The trade-off is they're going to have to work hard between 7:45 and 4:15, 6 hours in front of kids, be really great instructors, and be held accountable for results. Using the same dollars we have today, if we had a more effective way of using our resources, we could be paying an average salary of $80,000 today. In Third Future Schools, for example, we paid $15,000 more than the average of the surrounding district, and we're in 7 or 8 different cities now. And we're able to do that because of a lean central office and the way the model works.
What is your feeling on the, I don't know, this feels like squishy stuff sometimes, but it is really important. The librarians, the nurses, counselors, and wraparound services.
So, a couple of things there. The question always comes up, what is the outcome you're looking for? And have you identified it? After-school tutoring. So we're going to put it in, we don't do after-school tutoring because tutoring is not the best use of the money. The best use of the money is to make sure you have great first instruction, reading instruction. And tutoring, we've spent $1.6 billion in this country, and we have got no bang for a buck. There's a big discussion about Wheatley, and even if we were to really support Wheatley and turn it around, who's talking about McReynolds Middle School? I mean, look at the data for McReynolds Middle School, which feeds into Wheatley. They have achievement gaps of around 50-some points. They have proficiency around 20. McReynolds 8th graders are going to go to Wheatley the next year. And then we're back at square one? It has to be a system. It can't just be these one-offs. You can't just improve one school. You have to do the feeder pattern. So it's things like that that we need to be doing so that long-term we get the gains, not just, address this fire and then hit this fire and then that one.
So you seem, this is our first time meeting, you seem very confident. You seem like you've got this figured out. I'm wondering, is that how you are inside, or is there any part of you thinking, this is a really big experiment and kids' lives are on the line? I mean, their fates, rather. So
this is who I am. And I don't have any illusions, don't get me wrong. I've been through the fire. And even in my other careers, I've been through several crises, and so I don't ever panic, and I'm solutions and outcomes oriented. So I don't have any illusions about how hard this is. But this is not an experiment. This is not an exploration. This is a journey, but I know where the destination is. And it comes from years of experience. Again, I'm not all that. I know it takes a lot of different skills, but I have a track record of doing it, turning around schools, understanding what makes great principals, what makes great teachers, and applying that and getting the outcomes.
But how do you make sure what you do in Houston is sustained? It must be frustrating to look at Dallas and say, well, we had something there, and they're not funding it to the same level.
Especially since, the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
You're here
on a
temporary basis.
These are good questions. In Dallas, they did hold on to ACE and they pay for performance. But you're also right. It's not exactly how I put it in. They did water it down a bit. But Dallas is now one of the highest performing districts in Texas, and Dallas is performing better than Houston. When it wasn't, it was far behind when I got there. So now we're going to reverse that. We're going to beat Dallas.
Why didn't democracy work here? You know, it feels odd to support. We do want you to do well. At the same time, it feels odd to support a non-democratic solution when this is an independent school district and Texas is about local governance.
Yeah, I think that's a larger philosophical question, because one, I'm not sure democracy didn't work. The legislature is part of democracy, and they're making the rules, and I don't know enough about how they came to their decision to really say democracy worked or didn't work. Just as an American citizen, I will say this: we need to change how we operate schools. Part of that is governance. Part of that is on us, superintendents and principals and instructional leaders, to change how we do business. This is part of that change. From a governance perspective, I will focus on the change from an operational perspective.
Do you feel sometimes if you do well here that you could really change the world? That people will finally wake up and say, it's never been done on that scale before?
So, I mean, I don't know if I think of terms like that, but I do think of terms of helping American public education system realize they need to change the system, not their current system. And I think that will have Houston could have a big impact in that way.
How long do you think you'll be here?
How will you know when you're done?
I think it'll be 5 or 6 years. I think we have to make progress this very first year. We got to get rid of this myth that it takes 5 or 6 for one school to turn around. We've been able to do it in 32 schools in 1 year. So we can't do 273 schools at one time, but we can make good progress on the 30 schools and then grow that.
I toured HSPVA a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, this is amazing, and it bothers me that it coexists in the same place as, Wheatley or McReynolds. And so we love those things, we celebrate them, but we have to have more of a balance of opportunity. I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah. So I love the fact that there are some really good schools here. It has been, part of the autonomy has been a blessing too, right? Because communities should have the school that they want. If they want to focus on the arts, then that's a good thing. And you have a number of that. So you asked first, are there a number of good things you can point to? Yeah, there's a number of really good schools. I think the highest performing elementary school in the country is here, in the country. So that's good things. And we should try to preserve that. But your second part is also true. It's a tale of two districts right now. Okay, there are some really good schools, and then there are overwhelming number of kids who are not getting the education they need. And that is worrisome to me. And I have a charge to change that. The challenge will be preserving this, not taking any resources from this, while making sure we improve all the other schools. That's a challenge, and I'm committed to trying to seek a way to do that. What I'm not going to do, though, is lock in the achievement gap. By the way, the data suggests from NAEP that our white students are well behind the white students in the nation. We're at 60-some% proficiency, depending on the reading test, 4th grade, 8th grade, and we're about 8 points behind. That's not good in an environment that's getting more and more competitive. So all that means is we can't ignore our good schools. We also have to look at how we can make them improve even more.
What is the secret sauce for overcoming poverty? Many people won't even discuss education reform until they talk about poverty. Well, there's poverty, and it's a huge challenge, and we know this. It seems like you've figured out a way to overcome it.
I haven't, but I think the secret sauce is a good education. It may call me old-fashioned, but I have my own life story, but also the stories of my kids in their future schools, my students. We serve underserved kids, and well-meaning people often want to dumb it down, cut slack on poverty. Real quick, I grew up one of 8 kids, poor, in Colorado Springs. My dad was in the Army. My mom, Japanese. My dad's black. My mom didn't speak any English. My dad was in Korea and Vietnam. And we were poor. And poverty means different things to different people. But for me, it meant, you get often just one meal a day, and that meal is oatmeal. And sometimes you get 2 meals a day, and that means 2 bowls of oatmeal. That's how poor we were. I had a speech problem. I couldn't speak well, couldn't pronounce my words. And I got lucky, because instead of saying this poor kid shouldn't miss his recess and he comes from a poor family, 2 teachers took me by the hand during phonics class and during one recess every day. I went to them and I got phonemic awareness, pronunciation of diphthongs. I mean, I didn't know it at that time. Maybe they didn't even know a science of reading, training for this kid. But the bigger point is they didn't say, oh, he's from a poor family. He needs, cut him some slack. Why are you pushing him? His mom doesn't speak English. What do you expect? They didn't do that. And I overcame poverty because of my teachers. My dad used to say, being born in a garage doesn't make you a car. And I didn't understand what he meant at the time, but I understand now that, you can escape your conditions, your surroundings. You can change your stars. And I'm still a believer that education is the #1 thing we can do for groups of kids, not individual kids, but for groups of kids to change their trajectory. So I haven't figured out poverty, but I have figured out that we as a society, sometimes well-intentioned, hold kids back, and we don't push them enough. And we got to do it in gentle ways, but we do need to push them.
But the biggest challenge, you can have the most wonderful teacher, skilled teacher in the world, but she only has the child during a certain part of the day. During the rest, they're at home. Maybe there's no one there to make sure they do their homework. Maybe they're going to bed at midnight and they're sleepy all day. Maybe they don't have enough to eat. You still have to overcome that for a lot of these children.
There's no question it does take a village, and so what we need to do or continue to do is, for example, these 30 schools open the doors at 6:30, close at 6. Right? Because then you handle a lot of latchkey kids, but you also make it easier for parents to get to work. Because you can drop them off at 6:30 and they have a safe place to be. We need to make sure that we take care of them. We need to feed them. We need to open schools early. We need to feed them dinner if we have to. But at the same time, let's not treat kids as broken just because they're poor. They're not broken, they're poor. They need a meal, but they can still learn. And let's not dumb it down so that kids can't reach their potential. I don't know where I would be if someone had dumbed it down or said, he's one of 8 kids, he's a poor black kid, so, leave him alone. That's not what I needed. I needed people who were skilled at teaching, and they taught me how to speak. And as a result, I've been able to go to West Point, Columbia, Berkeley, some of the best colleges in the nation.
You mentioned superintendents being evaluated based on attendance. what outcomes should superintendents be evaluated on? And you have all these programs for principals and teachers. What would a program for a superintendent look like?
The achievement results, quality of instruction, same thing that the principals are evaluated on, a slightly different way, and also some other metrics. So if we can't get achievement results, you should fire me, okay? That's what I should be evaluated on mostly. There are other things. I have to have a vision. I have to move the district towards that vision. I have to articulate that responsibly. I have to make sure that we have community support for that vision. So I have other metrics too. But in the end of the day, we have some clear metrics for principals and division superintendents, and we need the superintendent to be just as accountable as they are around it. So, yeah, accountability.
Is there some outcome that librarians produce, and in those 30 schools, will they still have librarians?
In those 30 schools, they will probably not have librarians.
Why is that?
Because we're looking at the outcomes that we want for those 30 schools, and I don't know what outcome you get from. Yeah, I'd rather have high-quality teacher getting paid a lot than have a librarian doing what? Checking out books?
Oh, they do so much work at my daughter's school. I mean, they're with them once a week doing all kinds of educational
So they're
stuff.
acting like teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're doing their job right, they've read the books. They can shepherd the kids toward the right books. They know the kids. They can inspire kids to read.
A teacher could do that too.
And you think he or she has got the time. You're going to make sure they have the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll have more planning period time and things like that.
They'll have their
Because of the
lesson
support.
made for them, so they'll have still planning period, so they'll have time during their planning period.
And so just to clarify on that one, you said they'll have it there. They can use it. But if they choose to use their own lesson, they're able to do that? Because
Yeah.
some people will scream, ah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's tied to the TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, that's fine. But trust me, been down this road with my own schools, 98% of all teachers are going to use the materials given to them because they're good, they're clear, it's already planned out, answer keys are there. What's not to like about it? You know, even the really strong teachers know that they're being paid to instruct well, not to find curriculum. And so they're going to use it.
What do you want teachers, parents, children who are filled with anxiety right now to know about you and about what you plan to do with this district?
So the first thing is I'm reliable, I'm a good listener, and I'm extremely funny.
All right.
That's a line out of the Terminator, the last one. Arnold, can you imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger delivering that line?
Is that way if you're saying you're not reliable, you're not
No.
a listener, you were just being funny?
What I want to say is you're gonna hear a lot of movie references over time because movies help me make sense of things and capture the sentiment of the moment. That's all about that. But as far as to answer your question more seriously, what do they need to know about me? I'm very focused on helping kids. I'm a public servant. You can tell from my background, this is what I do. I have plenty of opportunities to do other things. I chose public service. I've chosen underserved kids my whole education career. And that's my mission. So the kids of Houston, that's what I want to do. I want to serve them, and I want to really help them get the best education possible. That's number one. Number two, I really like teachers. I respect them. I revere them. You don't get that from all the noise and stuff. But in the end of the day, I want them to have high salaries. I want them to have good professional development. I want them to succeed. I want them to feel good about helping kids, and I want them to get outcomes for kids, because that's what makes teachers happy when they're succeeding with kids. I'm just an educator. I'm not a politician. I'm going to do what makes sense for the kids of Houston ISD, and I have a board of managers that I have to work with, that I want to work with, but there's nobody else I'm accountable for. I'm accountable for the kids, to the kids of Houston, number one. My boss is the board of managers. That's it. There's nobody else around. I will take input from a team. I will work closely with the leadership team. I will get input from teachers and principals, but we're going to do things that make sense for the kids of HISD. Everything else is really not my area.
We've had interventions before, high priority schools, things like that. Why haven't they worked, and how is this going on?
It hasn't worked because of implementation and because it's not whole scale. That's why. So implementation for anything, even in a bad system or in a traditional status quo system, is really important. If it's not monitored and supported and coached on the field, you don't get good implementation. So you can say these are priority schools, you can say these are new teachers or reconstituted schools, and then nothing happens because there's no implementation.
And then the other question was just not only what happens after you leave, but I know that sometimes when in Dallas it was the case that schools would improve and then the extra resources sort of dry up.
That was never in the concept paper to be done like that. As you could probably guess, I write concept papers for every single initiative, and I'll do that here. So it has to make sense conceptually, systemically, then you can implement. So it was not supposed to be that way. They should not have done that, and that was like predictable. If you just take all your good teachers or don't give them any incentives so they leave to another school, then of course you're not going to have the same outcome.
And then the other question was just not only what happens after you leave, but I know that sometimes when in Dallas it was the case that schools would improve and then the extra resources sort of dry up.
That was never in the concept paper to be done like that. As you could probably guess, I write concept papers for every single initiative, and I'll do that here. So it has to make sense conceptually, systemically, then you can implement. So it was not supposed to be that way. They should not have done that, and that was like predictable. If you just take all your good teachers or don't give them any incentives so they leave to another school, then of course you're not going to have the same outcome.
Do you think paying more will just lead to higher quality?
Yes and no. The yes part is highly effective teachers are also motivated by salary, and so if we pay more, we advertise, we're going to get a stronger pool. But the pay itself is not enough, right? It has to be working in a system with others who want to do some challenging things. You have to have the right culture and mindset and grit, and that is what you also have to hire for. So we're not just going to pay people and just take anybody who applies. We're going to pay people well, but we're going to interview well and get the people who have the right mindset and grit and also past record of achievement.
Have you been assured that the governor will not be interfering, or what do you anticipate the governor?
I have had no conversations about the governor with Mike Miles. None. The governor does his thing. I'm going to do my thing. I won't do anything illegal, so I will follow whatever the legislature does. But I've got enough work to do. I've had no conversations. I've got nothing to do with the governor. Okay. You know, so I've got enough work to do. Right.